fight, baby, I don't wanna taste blood. I know it's coming even when she doesn't say much. There's nothing left, so it's really gonna save us. We'll have a couple drinks and act like we don't hate us.
Welcome back to The Full Perspective. It's been a minute, been a hot minute, but we got the, quote, comeback kid in here. Mark Lemon. Mark, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Welcome.
It's an honor.
For all the Middleborough football guys that you've had, there's no introduction needed. As soon as they're hearing this, as soon as they're seeing it, they're like, let's go. But just my point of view, like I was telling Alex before you came on here, just an open book. Like we could go anywhere with this podcast. I didn't really prepare for it.
Perfect.
I didn't write anything down, nor have I so far, but this one especially, like I think we're just going to go.
Okay,
Go
good.
with the blows.
Good.
And obviously, Alex doesn't know you too well, so you can talk to Alex and then all the people that don't know too much about you. So, with that being said, give me like a 1 minute summary of Mark Lemon. Like, just where you been. Like, tell me, like, it sounds cliche and it's tough to start it, but.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So I was born and raised East Bridgewater, Viking. And when I was like 19, I left and joined the Army and went in for like 5 years of active duty. And went to basic training at Fort McClellan, Alabama. Then went to Germany, had a couple had a deployment there. Went to Colorado, deployed again. Then I got out because I wanted to come home. You know, South Shore sucks you right back in. And then it was like 9/11, 2 days after I got out of the Army. So I was like, shit, you know. I was working construction, hanging out, and it was just in the back of my mind. So eventually, like, when Iraq kicked off, I was like, I gotta go. Like, it was just something in me. I was like, it's like practicing all week for the big game.
But then never going to the game.
So I was like, I'm not missing this. I missed Afghanistan, and I was like, I'm not missing this one, you know? So, I called up a recruiter, and he's like, yeah, we got a unit going. And I'm like, all right, I'm in. Packed my shit and was like, bam, I'm back in the Army. And I thought it'd be like 6 months, you know, like, oh, Desert Storm, you know? No, like 2 years later, I'm still in the Army. And we did like a year and a half in Iraq. And at that point, I re-enlisted, blew my back out coming home. So I was like, you know, like kind of messed up and hurt. And then I just kind of stayed in the Army, and here I am now.
So to give me a picture, because I've never asked you this before, what was the timeline like? You enlisted at 19.
Yeah.
It was before 9/11, so you were there.
So it was 1996.
And then you were there until 2001.
So my military timeline is like I joined, so I'm old. I graduated in 94, and then 2 years, took me 2 years because I wasn't, you know, ready for college. So I went to work, and then when I went to college, it was like, I think I had probably like a 0.0 for both semesters, and it was like, this is stupid. And I was, at that point, I was just like, I need to do something with my life. So, and I always had it in the back of my mind, like, I'm probably going to go in the Army at some point, because my brother went in, my father was like a Navy guy. It was just, I was brought up on like World War II documentaries and movies, and I was just into it. And so I was at a point in my life where I was like, I needed to go. So I joined the Army in 96, graduated basic training, AIT, which is advanced, you know, individual training, which was MP school for me. And at that point, I had, like I said, signed a 5-year contract. So I was immediately sent to Germany. And I was in Germany for like a month and a half. And they're like, oh, you're going to go downrange. I'm like, what does that mean, you know? Oh, you're going to go to Bosnia. So I was like 19 years old, 20 years old, I think. I can't remember. But they put me on a bus in Germany and like, you're going to go to Hungary. I'm like, where the hell's that? You know, like, and I'm just on a bus by myself with all my stuff. And luckily there was this older guy. He took me under his wings, and he brought me, you know, made sure I didn't get lost on the ride. And then I was in Hungary, met my new unit, gave me an M60, a full combat load, and we rolled into Bosnia. And I'm like, this is fucking awesome. You know, like I get this big machine gun, and you know, I was deployed there for like, I want to say like 10 months, and then I went back to Germany, partied for like a year. Then I got my orders to go to Colorado. Came home for like a month, flew to Colorado, and I was there like a year. And they're like, hey, I'm going back. I'm like, all right, cool. At this point, I felt like, you know, like, it's no big deal, you know? And then we spent like, I want to say about 11 months over there. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm kind of bored. You know, like we did that. I was just ready to come home. You know, I'm like mid-20s, like all, you know, all my boys working construction, making money and partying. And like I said, I always thought like, I got to get home. And then I got home and then I was like, what am I doing? You know, like I'm not built for this, you know, I'm built for something else. And so that's when I decided to like I said, go back, you know, Iraq, and 9/11 happened. Of course, you know, 9/11 was, that hit. Like I remember the day, like I had gone out the night before, so I was still sleeping. And my mother came in and woke me up and she said, we're under attack. And I'm like, dude, like what? And I remember coming out and watching, you know, the news and everything like that. And, you know, I'm sitting there with my dad and I'm just like, this is going to change my life. And like, that's something my dad always remembered. And it still took a while, you know, like I said, it took probably about another year for me to kind of just get it, you know, and then I went to Iraq.
Fun fact, I was on a plane during 9/11.
Really?
Yeah. I was a little child on my way home from Dublin, Ireland.
Whoa.
And they turned us back to Iceland.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's scary.
Is that nuts?
Yeah, that is nuts.
How old
To
were you?
Logan, by the way.
Yeah.
Like 2.
Oh, all right. So you didn't
I don't remember none.
Yeah. I was going to say.
I'm just sitting there doing nothing.
Because if you're old enough, that would be the scariest shit
Yeah,
ever,
Right?
you
Like,
know?
can you imagine?
Your
like,
parents are probably
my
Yeah.
mom could probably tell you.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, oh, what's going on? Like, we have to go to Iceland.
That's
It's like,
crazy. Just
okay.
diverting a plane.
Right?
So
Damn.
I think that's the point that caught me was you going back.
Yeah.
Like you said that you felt like you needed to,
Yeah.
but what was that like as a veteran at that time? You were probably assuming that you were done. Is what it
I
kind of
was
sounded
done.
like.
Believe me, I was living the life of being done.
Yeah. And you just knew that you had to go back?
Yeah, I can remember. I have a group of friends that like we've been friends, probably similar to you guys. You know, like since we could walk, and we used to go to work, get out of work, and go to dinner, which meant go to the bar and drink, and then come home, get on our quads, and fucking ride till 4 in the
South Shore,
morning.
baby.
Yeah, and we used to party in my buddy's basement, and we're all sitting there on his couch drinking beers, and the news is on, and everybody's like, "Oh, I should just, you know, bomb the shit out of that place and do this." And I'm just like thinking to myself, like, dude, you know, I love my friends, I love them, they're my brothers, but shut up.
Yeah.
You know, like, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, oh, we should do all this. And I remember I just said it. I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to go. And they all looked at me like, what? Like, you're already done. You're already done. And I was like, no, dude, I this is something I got to do. And it had just been sitting inside for
I was going to say, what was the internal, like, was it the passion that you wanted to fight for your country based on what you just saw and, like, what you've been through? Or was it a sense of there was more to give to the country? Like, what was
it was a combination of that.
Okay.
Like, so inside, you know, I would, you know, when you're in your 20s, you don't really know who you are. Right?
Yeah.
You're trying to figure that out. And for me, I knew like there was something else that I had to give, and I wasn't done. And I couldn't really process it, like, to say that at the time. I could say it now because I'm looking back, but then it was, you know, I wanted to give, but I also knew that, like I said before, this is what I had trained for. You know, like, I had deployed twice, but that was peacekeeping, and
it wasn't the real deal.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's like you get the full combat load. It's the best training event that you can have, is the way I used to always say. It's like, it's a great scrimmage. It's
Yep.
you know, when you scrimmage in football and it's like they have the refs and that's the way I equated it. But this was like the real deal. And I wanted to give, but I also wanted to test myself. Like, I wanted to know that, like, what am I made of? Like, can I do this? Am I going to be able to perform when it's real? Like, am I going to be scared? Am I going to turtle? Am I going to, stand up and go, like, and also, like, just, from like my dad, like, I love America. Like, to me, America is just where it's at. And going to places like Bosnia, it really reinforces like how good we have it.
I was
like,
going to ask you that today.
People think we're poor, right? Or people think they're poor here. And I'm not saying they're not. And like, struggle's struggle. It doesn't matter, where you're at or what you're doing. Struggle sucks. But when I saw people living in houses that were blown out, holes in them, and people living there, like, and it's cold, it's wintertime, and I'm like, damn, I got it good back home, like, and some of the shit I saw there was like terrible. It's like Holocaust, World War II style stuff that I don't think people know, like, about Bosnia, like what really happened there. Is like they were gathering people and just slaughtering them and burying them.
Jesus.
Yeah, and it was like it like affected me, and I didn't really realize it at the time how much it did affect me. Like when I go to counseling, like, because I have PTSD and all that, and I go to counseling, and I don't talk really about stuff in Iraq or Afghanistan. I tend to talk about stuff that bothers me, or and I say bothers, that's a relative term, but like that's the stuff I go back to. Some of the stuff I saw there was just, just atrocious. Like I've definitely been affected by that. I think a little bit more than the combat stuff, because these are just regular people. These are just neighborhoods, in towns that just got decimated. I've been in pits of 3,000 dead bodies where they're recovering the bodies, doing the forensic stuff. And I'm walking around and I'm like, holy shit, like one image that's seared into my brain that I can never get out is, it was the second tour, and I don't want to say I was giving a tour to the guys, but I was kind of showing them around certain places that I already knew. And there was these NYU students that were forensic students that were doing like a recovery type of thing. And they're undoing like kind of clearing out a mass grave. And I remember talking to this girl who was doing it, and, we're just shooting the shit. And I'm looking down, and there's this like little body, it's decomposed at this point, but it was like a little rain suit. Like it was a little kid, And the only thing I could think of was like that little kid, like the terror. And that kid, like, were they grabbing onto their parents, like, save me? And they didn't, And like I said, I will get emotional, but it still affects me. And that was what, 20 something years ago,
That's, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be what you are, how strong you are in terms of that situation, because that stuff bothers me, let alone what you saw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It does. If you're a good person, I think it bothers you.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was joking, like, because, like military law enforcement, you use dark humor to get through shit like that.
But you don't realize it until after.
Yeah, it's after. It's always after. And that one stuck with me. So, like, when Iraq was going on,
did you even realize
at the time? No.
Even during Iraq, like years later, you still like didn't even process everything?
No, because like when you're in Iraq and things like that, it's you're in the game. Like you're in it. And I always and it might sound weird when I refer to it as a game, but that's the analogy that I use. It's like for me, it's like the Bosnia thing was just like pure evil, right?
Yeah.
People coming in like, oh, you're a different ethnic group, so we're going to gather all the men and we're going to kill all them and we're going to send the women and children somewhere else. So sometimes they just kill everybody.
Yeah.
And I couldn't fathom, like, I was like, how could you do that? Like, as just a person, how could you like I couldn't do that. Like I don't care who gave me the order. I can't just machine gun down a bunch of people. You know, I
Yeah.
just can't. But when I got to Iraq, it was like you're on the battlefield, like like
You know what's at stake
Yeah, it's
almost,
like-
and it's like this sounds. I don't. Please correct me if this sounds wrong, but it's like man versus man with a gun,
100%,
man with a gun.
100%, dude.
There's no innocence. Like
yeah,
not.
there are innocents, but that's
You know what I mean?
that's the way I equate it. It's like again, to use a sports analogy, it's like, dude, you play football, you play hockey, you play any kind of contact sport. There's inherent risk.
Yeah.
Like you might get paralyzed. You know, that's the worst. But like when you step onto the field of battle, hey, there's risk. You know what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
you pick up a gun and you come to fight me. Hey, I got to get home. You want to get home. May the best man win. You know, I'm
Yeah.
going to get my boys home too, you know?
Yeah.
It's something I used to tell my guys when I was over in Iraq. Like I had very young guys. Like I was 25. I was young, but I was the old guy. And I would tell them like, there's one rule like that I have. Don't do anything you can't tell your mother about.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I don't know about your mom, but like my mom would want me to come home and she would want me to protect my friends and she would want me to protect innocent people. So if you're doing that, you got no problem.
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it, you know?
That was. It's like Chris Kyle in American Sniper when he says, "I'll answer to everything."
Yeah.
To God, like I'll answer every shot that I took to God because I have nothing to hide. What do you do? What do you do now after like fathoming all that? And you said you go to therapy or counseling.
Yeah.
Same thing, right?
Yeah.
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 Like what do you do to help yourself with that? Because that's a huge traumatic event. That's like the definition of.
So when I went to Iraq, I was there for like a year and a half. Like it just was the never ending deployment. It was a long, long time, right? And during it, you don't realize like
Because you're in the game.
Yeah, how tired you are, how just spent you are. When I got home, it was funny. We got to Fort Drum, and I came home in a wheelchair because I blew a disc out in my back, and they didn't have the equipment to find out what it was. So they just give me a shot and get back in the game, kid.
Yeah.
And I was fine to do it, but I knew something was wrong. And then it just, right before we came home, it kind of just like, I couldn't move. I couldn't walk, which was scary. And then when we got home, we were at Fort Drum, and part of the thing, like, partied like rock stars when we got home, as you can imagine. And the next day, they put us in a auditorium, and they had this Vietnam vet come in. And he started talking, and everybody's like hungover. Nobody's listening, but I was listening, and he started saying some things like, hey, be aware of this. Be aware of, you know, the sleeping thing. Like I couldn't sit, you know, with my back to a door. I couldn't, like I would come into a place and be like, all right, there's a window there. There's a door there. I need exits. I have to have a plan. And I started to realize like, all right, maybe something's going on. And like I said before, like I'd grown up on all the movies and stuff, you know, World War II, Vietnam, everything. And I, you know, like kind of realized like, hey, that can happen. And I realized like, all right, I got some stuff going on. So when I got home, I made an appointment and I talked to somebody. And, you know, to be honest, the first couple of years I didn't really say much because I'm a dude and I'm fine. And it didn't help that my first counselor was a Vietnam vet. And I'm like, I can't talk to you about, like thinking I hadn't done anything. And finally I got this lady, and even for a year with her, I didn't say much. But one day I just remember she was just like, so how do you really feel? And I was like, you want to know how I fucking feel? And I was like, blah, and I let a bunch of stuff out. And I remember walking out of there being like, whew, dude, I feel good. I feel better.
Yeah.
And I had, in 2007, so I got home in 2004. And I had watched all the guys in my squad kind of disintegrate one way or another. Drunk driving, attempted suicide, just different things. Breaking down as people. And what I hadn't realized was like I was broken down too. I was living kind of like a savage. I was living at buddies' houses here. I didn't have things going because I couldn't get things going. And again, I didn't really realize it because I'm in it and I was numbing myself with alcohol, drugs, risky behavior, you name it. And when it really stuck was I was coming home. I was coming from Fort Devens, and I was on a mission there. And some things happened, and I just didn't handle it right. And I was pissed off, and I was angry, and I was driving home, and I was thinking well, if I was going to kill myself, this is how I would do it. And I also had a conversation with myself right then. I was like, whoa. What am I talking to myself about? What am I doing? And that's when I really realized, okay, dude, I really need I really need to talk.
Yep.
And that's when I started to put the effort into therapy and kind of say okay, I'm going to be honest with you. First of all, I trusted the lady. Finally, I found somebody that I felt comfortable and trusted. And I started talking about stuff and saying, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I had these thoughts. I don't, I'm not going to kill myself, but I've been thinking about it. And that scared the shit out of me. And because I realized then too, I want to live. I don't want to die. And that's when, okay, she started breaking down things well, you feeling this? I had felt anxiety. I had never felt anxiety in my whole life. I had felt it, but I didn't really recognize it as anxiety, and it was overwhelming at this point.
Yeah.
And that's when it was they're like, oh, we got pills for this. So I was like, no, I don't want pills. I want to get to the root of the problem. I want to understand why so that I can fix it, because to me, taking pills is we're going to mask it,
Yep.
No, let's get nitty gritty here and get down, and talk about stuff. And when I started to do that, I started to drag myself out of the hole.
Yeah.
And I realized okay, this is good. And then that's when I really was all right, I'm going to keep it going. And it's, dude,
Have you done counseling ever since that time?
Oh, I'm still in counseling.
Yeah, but was there ever a period where you stopped or you just kept the good thing going?
So that whole time, so I got home in 2004. I was in it, stopped, in it, stopped. I wasn't getting it. It wasn't doing anything for me because I wasn't putting the proper effort into it. And the things I was doing in my life, like I said, I was really, really drinking a lot and doing a lot of drugs. I hate to say that now because, but it's the truth. I was, and I was ashamed of things. Felt guilty about things, and I just wasn't the person I knew that I could be and I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so part of it was making those changes,
Yeah.
I used to drink to get smashed because I remember when I first got home, especially, is I would go out with my friends and I couldn't feel comfortable unless I got hammered.
Yeah.
Once I got hammered, hey, it was great. Let's keep going. But then I would wake up and feel like shit, because number one, I'm hungover, and then number two, I'm I didn't resolve any of the issues that they're still there. You can't run away from them. Mm-hmm. As much as you numb it, it's still there. So
isn't there a scientific thing or something around science where being hungover the next day, it's a natural anxiety booster?
Yeah. There's
Correct.
so when you drink, you're basically if you want to dumb it down to a 5-year-old, the serotonin and everything goes up. That's why whenever you're drinking, you're really happy.
Yeah.
But when you come over or become hungover the next day, your body's at low. That's why you feel like absolute shit in the morning.
Yeah.
Now, am I a scientist? No. Is there other chemicals in your brain that I'm not mentioning? Yeah, but that's the basis of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then once Tuesday hits or the next day where you're normal again, you'll start to feel better. But in that period of time, if you're just continuously drinking or you're really hungover, anxiety, hence the term.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anxiety, I still deal with because we'll get into
I
that.
think there's
but
an actual
it's
chemical
just,
or something.
Yeah,
too,
it's
that's associated
well, it's a
with
depressant.
it.
All that stuff's a depressant. And it just compounds everything.
Yeah.
It makes it worse because then you feel oh, this is the only way I can feel good. I'm a piece of shit because that's the only way I can feel good. And then it's well, I don't want to feel normal because I don't want to confront those feelings.
Yeah.
So let me get fucked up.
There is the behavior side, and then there's also the scientific side. It goes hand in hand.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of
100%.
fighting fire with fire.
Yeah.
Almost.
There
You
was
just gotta feel Feel the flame.
Yeah, last year I think I had a similar experience, obviously. Well, let me ask you this, first of all. Did your therapist ever tell you that it's a common thing of what like you're thinking in terms of that? So that's like the first. Last year, when there was a kid in our grade, military kid, killed himself. My grade. I knew him growing up. I wasn't boys with him. We obviously grew apart. But like finding out about that, I was like, it was like a Tuesday. It like bothered me.
Yeah.
Like big time bothered me. I was like, how could somebody do that? Like, I just didn't know. Like,
You want to know why?
Yeah. So then like a week later goes by, I go to like a services. I'm like just at home, at the place I lived at. And we went out, like nothing crazy, just hanging out with the boys, like Saturday night, like had some beers, like nothing crazy. Wasn't anything, I wasn't doing anything stupid, just a normal 23-year-old kid. Woke up the next day hungover.
Yeah.
I was open on my phone. I had a coffee too, caffeine. You just talk about all the wrong things at the wrong time.
Nectar of the gods.
Saw his memorial. Boom, trigger.
Yeah.
I was like, once again, how could I do that? But then everything started to kick in. My brain was twirling. I was like, if he does that, could like I do that?
Yeah,
Could one of my friends do that?
You're faced with your own mortality.
Yeah, it's like, what is going on? So then I had this anxiety attack to the point where I was by myself at my house. All my buddies just ironically were gone. My parents weren't there, family, nobody there, just sitting in the house, like just having it, like the anxiety attack where it's like, holy shit, what's going on? And I didn't know what to do, so I went to the hospital. I was like, I walked in and I was like, I think I'm having an anxiety attack, not really sure. Like, I've never experienced this. So they sent like the guy down for like the crisis management guy. And I'm like, this makes me feel better. Like, this is good. Thanks for sending this guy down. Like, you're really making me feel good. Anyways, long story short, left the hospital. Was like fine. Just I had anxiety before that because I knew I did, because I had performance anxiety with like baseball, which was like something minor, like just got nervous like before games, but never experienced something like that. So then I was like, I need to go
That shit's
get
scary,
help.
dude.
I need to get therapy. So I mean,
you.
there's no linear path with that, I would say, for people.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just going to go to this guy one day and then a week later, you're going to be like, oh, I feel fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It's like a steady path. And like we were talking about off the air, like I've said it on here, I'm a huge therapy guy. And I was down bad, like during those times. Like I was a kid, like I didn't know what I was doing with my life. Like, you know,
you're trying
this
to find
and
yourself.
that. I got this going on. This kid's doing this. So it's making me feel like this, like what's going on. And it finally like clicked to me that I think it's very common, but it's until like if you keep that shit internalized, you're toast.
Toast, dude.
Toast.
And that was what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was keeping it all balled in and being, because we're men, so we're like conditioned to, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'll keep going. No, I'm okay. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
I'll help you. You know, that was my thing. I was helping everybody else and I wasn't helping myself. And like you said, when you keep it balled in, the bill's going to come due.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's the thing I try to tell other vets. I'm like, you know, like, dude, the bill's going to come due. You want to come due when you're 84 or you know, like, you know, it's coming.
And that's funny you say that, because two things that come to my mind right now is, one, I've said this before, but everybody in the world has anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually a human instinct.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
You came from a cave where you were running from animals, surviving for your life.
Yeah.
Cave, however,
we're animals.
Whatever. You can't get that out of you. As much as you want to stare at an Instagram screen, you're still going to have the instinct of fight or flight in you.
Yeah.
All three of us have it right here, right now.
Yes.
That's that. And then the other thing, which I kind of forget what I was going to say with this. I forget.
I will say, real quick,
hang on, let me think.
Every guest on this podcast has a quote that stands out. during the podcast, and I think the Bills do is going to be up there with some of the greatest quotes. By the way,
I'm so happy you said that, because what I was gonna say was, if you experience something like you've experienced in me, obviously our stories are different. There's until you're that scared.
Yeah.
There's nothing really that bothers you after that.
Right. Yes.
Like
100%.
Like,
yes.
if I bumped into somebody on the road at a stop sign, and like my car's messed up, like that don't really bother me too much. I've experienced what bothers me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because that's actually an issue. It's a good thing for me, because that's the way I feel, but it's also can be kind of like an issue for me, because I don't get worked up about certain things that maybe everybody else does.
Like your wife?
Yeah.
Or like my girlfriend.
Yes,
she'll be like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, dude,
I'm like,
really
nobody's going to die. Nobody's
Yeah.
going to get shot. Like, it's all good. And you can't, like, just what I just said is not a normal statement for people. But to me, it's 100% normal.
Yeah.
Like, and that's really kind of one of the roots of why I think veterans have a problem coming home. It's not necessarily like I saw terrible, terrible things, but like, honestly, those aren't really the things that bother me. When it was kids, all right, that's different, but like, it's just part of the game again, you know. But like, coming home out of that environment and like, oh, you're worried about that? Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And like, they're like, no, dude, what's fucking wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why don't you care about that, you know?
Why are you mad that dinner's not ready yet?
Yeah, like, it's all right. We're gonna eat. We're fine.
We're fine.
You know,
That's
like,
amazing.
It's funny because like I got angry about that when I came home, and I didn't realize like I was an angry person. Like when I came home, not all the time. Like you would have met me years ago and been like, oh, we had a great time, because I would have been the life of the party.
Yep.
But like some of my friends, I my real close friends, I give them kudos, because I was probably it was probably very hard to be my friend sometimes, because I would be angry about things. Like I have a nickname with some of my friends, the Angry Bear, you know, because I would just be angry, you know, and they'd be like, "Rrr," and then they'd be like, all right, you know, calm me down, and then everything would be fine. But like, for me, it was frustrating, because I would get angry and like, I didn't know why. I'm like, why? I don't want to be that guy. Like, why am I so pissed off? But I didn't fit, you know, like it's very hard to explain, but like, I didn't feel like I fit with the people I should feel that I should fit with.
Yeah. But it's crazy how like common, if you were to tell your friends at the time of like, this is going on. Yeah. Like there's been, I won't say anything like names, but there's been people where I've talked to like during that time where it's like, dude, I've thought the same thing. Yeah. Like, and you're like, holy shit. Yeah. Like, really? Because you only feel like it's you. Like, you said that your thing was like, you felt different, but like,
everybody's felt that way.
Just, if you're listening to this, talk to your friends. Yes. Like, that's all I'm going to say. Yeah. And just honest. Find out just open up about something, and I guarantee you, if you're close to that person, you guys come from similar backgrounds and grew up with each other, you will find something very common with that person.
Absolutely. It's, I try to tell people, like, one of the best lessons I've learned, and you said it earlier, is like, it might have been off air, but like, you don't know what other people are thinking. We always assume we know what others, like your friends, that person feels this way about me. Yeah. And then you really you have a nitty gritty conversation with them, and they're like, dude, they weren't even close to thinking that, you know, like, I 100% agree. Like, you got to open up, and you got to you got to get it out, man. You got to get it out, because if it sits inside, it just eats a hole in you. Yeah. You know, and that's why I love therapy. Yeah. Because therapy to me is like, people get this idea that it's like, oh, you're weak, or you're this, or you're that. You know, dude, you're sorting shit out. To me, the people that go to therapy are brave, because you have to get in there with a total stranger and say, this is how I'm fucking feeling, and I don't like it, or it's making me feel sad, or it's making me feel angry, and that's scary to do to someone. You're like, when you open up and you're vulnerable, that's hard. Yeah. That's very hard. That's why, like, especially for men, like, we're not conditioned to be, we're not supposed to be vulnerable, because that's weakness. Because as growing up, you know, there's always like Middleborough and East Bridgewater are you know, very similar, because I coach in Middleborough, and to be quite honest, And I'm not just saying it because I'm here, but like I feel more at home in Middleborough now because I've feel like I've been more a part of the community. And now that I'm home and back in East Bridgeville, I'm like, I realize like I still have friends that I feel totally comfortable with, but I feel more comfortable here because people know me more because I've given here. And oh shit, I don't remember exactly where I was going.
You feel more comfortable because everybody around here is just like, at least the people that I hang out with are just like, yo, I feel the same way, dog.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, regular
like,
people.
Regular.
Yeah.
Regular. Everybody's regular. There's nothing to hide.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing a suit. Well, I do wear a suit, but if
you do wear a suit.
If you come up to me in a suit,
Actually,
I'm gonna
wait. You're not no regular guy.
No, 100%.
Bro,
no.
you just all right. So I've been just sitting there kind of like observing what you've been saying for like 10 minutes. And you know when you're talking about your anxiety and all that in the summer and like where you're at?
Yeah.
Dude, now fast forward to right now and look at all that progress you made.
Yeah.
Like think about
Yes.
that.
100.
You know what I mean?
You make progress.
I
through your
remember
downfalls.
we would be on the phone call like, yo, what are we gonna do? Like figuring out our lives, like you've been saying. We're in our 20s. We're trying to figure out who we are. This guy is like, yo, I got an interview with the Bruins.
Yeah.
I'm like,
right?
Sick. Let's go. And then, you know, like 3 months later, this guy's
you
doing
work for the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, this guy's doing games. This guy's Jack Jones in it up.
Oh, jeez.
I can tell you kind of like are a little embarrassed about it, but like you shouldn't be at all. Like to me, like that shows your character.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
I think there was a point in time where I was really embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
And like didn't say anything.
And
then,
I believe me, I get that.
Yeah.
And that's where I was.
But yeah, what I was gonna say is after that name drop.
Yeah, I'll cut it out. Don't worry.
No, you're good. You're good. Leave it in there. Jack's my boy. I love Jack.
I love Jack.
No, I think what I was saying was if I'm at work, if I'm at home, if I'm with you guys, if I'm this and that, and I feel comfortable enough to talk to you, like, and you're not, you know, if I don't know you, I might not say anything, like, or if I feel like I shouldn't say anything, like, I won't, but, like, I'm just me.
They're
like,
gonna
I'm
get
just
Eddie.
me.
They're gonna get
like,
Eddie. They're not
whether
gonna
I'm in a
get a made-up
suit, whether
character.
I'm in sweatpants, like, I ain't gonna change, you know?
Oh, I know.
And, you know, that's just how it is.
But that's
and
why
I think
that's why people like you though.
yeah, you got to be
know?
comfortable in your own shoes. And I mean, am I perfect at it? No. But
No one is though. But that again, that's part of
I'm just
growing
trying to
up.
be a normal guy, you know? Just like everybody else. Everybody who goes to work every day, at the end of the day, they go home, they're a normal person.
100%.
You know? If they act like they are, like during their job and they're in a meeting and this and that, like they go home, they sit on the couch, they have dinner. Like, who knows what they're doing? But we're all the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's the people who can stay true to themselves tend to be the people that people gravitate towards. You know, if you're putting out fake stuff, people see right through that. In reality, it was just the last thing that needed to happen in order for me to start the process of, I was so deep down in the hole by myself. You guys have heard this, you know, I don't know, I guess a story of like the guy who's in a hole and everybody walks by and the priest is like, hey, you down in the hole? What are you doing? He's like, yeah, I'm down in the hole and I can't get myself out. Well, here's the Bible. And he walks away. And then somebody else walks away and doesn't give him, you know, thinks they're giving help, but they don't. And then the friend comes and jumps in with them and is like, what are you doing? Like, now we're both stuck in here. And yeah, but I already been here, so I know the way out. And I had a friend that like allowed me to sit on his porch every night with his wife, and we would get wrecked every night, right? And his wife would go to bed, and then I would blah, and I laid some stuff on it. To be honest, I don't remember all the stuff that I said to him, but I remember that ride home, I called him, and I was like, dude, I'm not doing so good right now. He's like, yeah, no shit. He's like, I've been waiting. But you know, he's a very smart dude. And he was like, I've been waiting. He's like, dude, you need help. I was like, yeah, I already made the call.
Yeah.
And it was a turning point. I was still deep down in the hole, but at least I could see the light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I knew that like I wanted to live and I didn't want to live like that anymore. And
So the small flick, the
Yeah.
kick kind of led to that, and then you
Yes.
realized.
Yeah.
So it was a small thing that led to a big thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like that happens. It's
usually the way.
Yeah.
For people I talk to, that's usually kind of it.
It's usually a factor.
Yeah, but it's good to hear it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Honestly, I'm so glad I went through that though, because number one, I will never ever let myself get that low again. Never ever. When things get dark or start to go that way, I'm like, nope. And I have a conversation with myself. I'm like, no, we're not going there. Like, let's talk to whoever we got to talk to, or just, look at things a little differently. Like something I've kind of learned through it too is like, sadness is okay. It's okay. Everybody gets sad, and it's all, for me at least, how I look at it. Right. If I'm sad now, I don't let that grab me and pull me down and hold me down, because once it does, it just nothing. It changes how you look at everything, and you start digging the hole deeper. Right now, I look at it as like, okay, I have some, like I'm missing some love. I need love from somewhere. It's either for myself or I'm not getting it somewhere else. Whatever it is. And sadness, or love, if you don't have an outlet for it, or if you're like somebody dies, you feel this pain and this sadness, but it's not, the way I look at it, it's not really pain and sadness. It's, you're used to, like, my dad passed away and we were thick as thieves, and it bothered the shit out of me. And I was really sad, and I would just cry, and I never cry. And what I kind of realized is all that love that I used to give my dad, I have nowhere to put it now. So it's still sad, but now I recognize it as, okay, I just need to find a different outlet for that love. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a random side note
I love it.
that just popped into my head while you're speaking, because you're very articulate and it's very soothing at the same time. It's really weird because he's talking about sadness and ways to cope. Have you ever thought about speaking to other veterans or other people?
It's funny you mentioned that. So I stopped working and started going to school because my kid was being born, and me and my wife were talking. We didn't want our kid brought up in daycare, and she wanted to go back to work, and we were like, one of us needs to stay. And I was like, you know what? I can still get income because I can go to school and get paid, through the GI Bill. I had an outlet for it, and it's just something I kind of, at the point in my life, I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to throw everything into my son, and point being is now he's old enough, and it's he's going to go to school. So what do I do now? What's my next mission? And there's jobs at the VA. My dream job at the VA actually is a peer-to-peer counselor to counsel other vets that are in jail, coming out, and there's a whole processes for them, kind of advocate for veterans that are in the VA. Things I want to do something like that. So I am speaking wise, I would. I just don't. Nobody's ever asked me.
Yeah, I was wondering because
that's a great question.
That's exactly what
Alex,
I was
a great
wondering.
listener.
Yeah. See,
because I was like, dude,
I mean,
I would listen all day.
Because you're relatable. That's the biggest thing. Is these guys
Very
or whoever
relatable.
you're talking to is very relatable. That's what's the difference between everybody who says they go to therapy, everybody who says they talk to somebody. What do they all have in common? They felt comfortable.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
You make people feel comfortable.
I appreciate
honestly.
that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's very valid.
Yeah.
And then kind of back to what we were talking about, you said that was your breaking point, and that was hey, I gotta get the job done, kind of. I have to go to therapy. I gotta start figuring out. What was the transition into starting to work on yourself? Was there key things that you decided to start doing? Was there a schedule that you started going by, or was there
outside of therapy?
What was the main thing that kind of pushed you in the right direction, I'd say, other than therapy?
It was really the decision to get better. People can say it all the time, right? We say oh, I want to lose weight. I want to do this. I want to do. It's different when you you can lie to everybody. I can lie to you guys all day long, but I can't lie to myself. So when I decided, like, no bullshit, no more, like, it's time to go. It just was a mentality change of, you know, okay, I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen to what this lady has to say. And when she started explaining things of, yeah, you're feeling this, but that also triggers this and this behavior. And those behaviors, by the way, compound what you're feeling already. So instead of doing the things of drinking to get drunk, you know, snorting enough cocaine that like I'm dropping my buddy off at his work and I've got 2 tissues stuffed up my nose and he does too. And I'm driving his car to drop him off at work, you know, like shit like that.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like a bad lifestyle.
Yeah. Like, you know, it's, you start to take stock of like, okay, what am I doing?
Yeah.
All right. So this lifestyle I'm living right now is going to lead one place, death. Right. And the reason I joined the Army, it was because, so like I said, I graduated and I wasn't ready to go to college. And then when I went to college, I was like, yeah, I'm a terrible student, really, when it comes down to it. Because I like to get high and I liked to drink, and that was more important. So I joined the Army because one night I was driving from a friend's house and I was hammered, and I don't know why, but like in the middle of the drive, I'm like, I'm going to die if I stay here. Like, I'm shit-faced. And I pulled in, this is a wild kind of story. I pulled into my buddy's cousin's house, and his cousin was older than us, probably in his 30s, and I'm like 18, 19 at the time. Knocked on his door at 3 in the morning. He had met me once. God bless the dude, because he answered the door, and I was like, dude, I'm shit-faced, and I need a place to crash. And he didn't say, like, dude, you know, like, what are you doing here? You know, he just was like, all right, come on in. Grab me a pillow. And I woke up on his couch, and I was like, what the fuck? I called my boy, and I'm like, it's so funny because I'm used to, like, not talking about this stuff. But, you know, I'm retired now, so fuck it. I was like, roll a joint. And we're going to the recruiter. He's like, I'm not joining the Army. I'm like, no, but I am. And I walked in and was like, hey, I want to join the Army. And they're like, all right, come on, sit down, you know?
Yeah.
You don't get many guys doing that. And then I left. But the thing was, I joined the Army and, like, I just kept that partying going.
Yeah.
And this time I was older and I had already been through it and I was tired. Dude, I was tired. I didn't want to feel shitty anymore. And when you really make that decision of, I don't want to feel shitty anymore, then you start to put that work. You start to change things. Like, you start to, like, push people who are maybe not a good influence. You know, might be a boy. Like, to be honest, the kid that I was partying with was like my little brother. He grew up in the neighborhood. Like, we were just thick as thieves, you know? And I realized, like, he's in it. Like, you know, to be honest, he's still in it to this day. And I don't even talk to him anymore because I couldn't watch him kill himself, but I couldn't be a part of it anymore. So kind of got away from that. I started doing positive things of, like, and it was little things like, okay, I'm going to get a resume together. I'm going to get a real job. I'm going to really put some effort into the military again, you know, and, like, use that avenue because it was comfortable. You know, I know what I need to do. I can go to these schools. I can get in shape again. I can do these things, and I know I'm good at it.
Yeah.
And that was really where I got a job in working for the Army and having that structure of having to be somewhere every day and doing something positive, you know? It was in taking, and again, it was listening. Okay, I'm understanding the feelings that I was having. Not, to be honest, they were normal.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, I always equate it, you know, I always say it as, like, it was a perfectly normal reaction to a completely fucked up situation. I went to war. Like,
You served for years.
But to me, it's just, okay, that's what I did. I didn't do anything special. You know what I mean? Like, and I still, like, I feel uncomfortable even saying I did something special.
It's humbleness.
Yeah.
But I realized, like, only 1% or fraction of a percent of the population ever does it. So it is special, you know, like.
Fuck yeah, it is, man.
I mean, dude, it's not like a walk in the park.
No, it was.
You know what I mean? It's not like another day in the office.
Yeah, no, it's an intense, like, it broke my body, you know, like, for one thing.
Slip a disc.
Yeah.
Like, and they're
a couple discs.
injecting you like, hey, go back in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not normal.
Oh, I tore a tendon in my knee. I remember sitting in Iraq in some dirty little medical tent. And the guy's like, I can give you a pill, you know, and we can take pills for 30 days and eventually it'll work. I'm like, well, what else you got? He's like, I can give you a shot and you'd be good for 3 days. I'm like, let's go. You know, like.
We just talked about like all the like past experiences like that you've dealt with.
Yeah.
And
kind of the aftermath.
yeah. And I kind of want to jump into a little bit during, because you said you want to talk about that.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
So, and you could take the wheel on this, but you were a sergeant, correct?
Yeah.
So
Not the whole time.
I know, but the big part about being a good leader is you like your experience.
Yeah.
Like you've experienced so much stuff. Like you can't just jump into a leadership role without experiencing this stuff. And even in life for you, you've talked about all your experiences that you've had in your life to make you who you were.
Yeah.
What was to be a leader in that position? I think is probably the most difficult leadership positions you could possibly have.
It's very complex.
What was the lead up to that, and the lead up to that, and how like you handled it? Because there's lives on the line.
Yeah.
Like there's a serious
No,
leadership role, and kind of go into that, like your experiences, like kind of what you went through a little bit, and like being a leader in a military operation. So
again, you talk about the experience. So when, like I said before, like I went to basic training, and you know, a month or two after basic training, you know, and basic training gives you exactly what it is, basic skills, right? So when you get to a unit, you get a sergeant, and they train you so that you master level 1 skills. That's my job. Like as an MP, you know, it's funny, like you always hear in the military, it's very, everybody makes fun of everybody, right? So if you're a grunt, they think they're the end all be all, which quite frankly they are, you know, because those are the guys that go out and like, you know, that's all they do is train to fight, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to have a certain mentality, right? But they think nobody else fights. But as an MP, everybody thinks, oh, you're riding around in a patrol vehicle arresting people. And it's like, that is a part of it. But in the Army, there's two parts of being an MP. There's the law enforcement mission, and then there's the field mission, right? And I always was in a position where I barely did the law enforcement. I always got stuck with the field stuff. I say stuck. I actually preferred it, to be honest. I wanted to be a cop when I joined. That was why I did the MP thing. And I got into law enforcement. I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I don't want to deal with other people's problems. And being in the field, I kind of had a knack for it. That's where I was supposed to be. You know, I loved the woods. I loved running around. I loved getting dirty. And I loved weapons. I didn't realize it. I wasn't one of those kids that grew up shooting or anything like that. And then when I got to the military, it's like I was a heavy weapons guy. You know, like I got the M60 at first, and then I had a Mark 19, which is an automatic grenade launcher, 50 cals. Like, it was just awesome. I was like, this is great. You know, I get to shoot stuff and blow stuff up. It's awesome. But throughout the years, I had these great sergeants, like these guys that taught me the ins and outs. And my first deployment, I was what we call the slick sleeve. I didn't have any rank. I was an E1, like the bottom shit bag of them all, right? And I had this sergeant who was like a hard ass, and he like drilled me. Like we would go on, having the deployment was like good and bad at the same time, because he treated me like shit on it, but I didn't realize he was trying to train me to make me really proficient at what I did. So like we'd do a mission, 16 hours, and I'm cold. I just want to go eat, take a shower, and the rest of my squad's going to do that. And he would make me take the weapon system, take it apart, name every piece, and then put it back together while naming every piece. So like that weapon system to me, like you put it sounds cliche, but you put a blindfold on me, I could take it apart and put it back together and do a functions check and get the thing rolling. I had to set up the truck. I had to set up the radios. Like, so the whole component that we used in combat situations, like he made me master those. So that was like the first building block of the leadership thing down the line. I had mastered the level 1 stuff. And the only reason I didn't become a sergeant while on active duty is because I was such a shithead. Like I would literally go to the field, like say we'd have a field problem for like 2 weeks, go out, live, do kick ass in the whole thing, like do my job above, the standard, right? And then that Friday night they'd bust us back and I'd go out and get in a fight downtown and, show up to work with my nose crooked and a black eye, and they're like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Or I'd get in trouble on post, for drinking. It was always drinking. So I learned a lot of harsh lessons that way too. And I had a lot of leaders that, weren't necessarily the best leaders.
So you saw how the bad leaders were.
I learned, actually, I think I might have learned more from them about leadership specifically, because I was like, I'm not going to be like that dude.
Yeah.
And the ones that I remembered that I like looked fondly on cared about me.
Yeah.
Like the guy who picked me up in Germany while I was sitting in the barracks on Christmas by myself playing video games in the barracks and feeling pretty low, like, oh, my family's back home, eating turkey or whatever. And I'm sitting here and he's like, nah, pick your shit up. You're coming to my house, me and my wife, And that's a guy that, like, I look back at, I'm like, damn, that's a good leader right there.
Yep. So how did those things turn into the leader that you were in combat?
So when I went to Iraq, I was still in E4, right? So I was not in a leadership position, but I went from active duty to the reserves. And when I went into the reserves, like, these guys were sergeants, but, like, I had more experience than them. I knew, like, the day-to-day soldier shit I had mastered and they didn't. Because, in fairness, they're there once a month. How can they?
Yep.
And not to say that they were incompetent or anything like that. There was, things that they did that were excellent. But they were kind of, I hate to say it, but my first squad, when I was in combat, the leaders were kind of shitty, kind of goofy, to be honest. And it was like there was 18, 19-year-old kids that were underneath us. And I just took the reins. It was like, no. I'm not going to let them, like, I had met their parents. So I'm like, I'm not going to send them home and, a body bag because we're fucking idiots.
Yep.
So I kind of just started to become a leader. And
a non-leadership role.
Yeah. And eventually I had good leadership above like the squad level that recognized that and started putting me in positions of, leadership and authority. And eventually I got promoted to corporal and then to sergeant while I was over there.
What was the hardest, like, situation as a leader that you've had to make in, like, a area?
Like decision line?
Yeah. Like, was there ever like a split-second decision that you had to make? Probably a lot. I guess that's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah,
but
no. I it's like specifically, I can remember one time we're on a patrol in where I was at in Iraq was right on the Syrian border. Right, it's a town called Al Qaim, and we were 3rd ACR, 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. So that they're full of tanks, Bradleys, real heavy stuff. So when you're in an occupational force and you're patrolling like through the city, they can't get those big vehicles in there. So they used to, like, they'd cordon off the outside of the area we were going to patrol or whatever, and then we go in. They kind of it was fun because they kind of let us off the leash, like we're the attack dogs, because we had Humvees and we could walk. We could do it kind of both, and so we would go in there. And one night we split to 2 different, like, units. We were mixed in with the Cav guys, and they wanted to do a foot patrol because they had like a 10 o'clock curfew. Anybody on the street after 10 o'clock can get shot. I'm like, dude, yeah, no, that's not happening. Like, well, I'm not going to shoot somebody for, being out on the street at 10 o'clock, but we're going to make sure we get everything, locked down so that they can't set up their, IEDs or shoot at us with RPGs, whatever it was. So we're walking through the city and it's like, we started at like 11 o'clock at night and it's like 5 a.m. We're just about to stop, reconsolidate and get back into one unit and then convoy back to the base. And as we're sitting there, just a shot hits like right next to me and ricochets off and hits my truck. And I'm like, oh shit. So I run, you know, and get up, get cover. And I can remember looking back and there's my gunner up there on the machine gun scanning. And I'm like, I'm behind cover. And I'm like, dude, fuck that. Like, I can't.
That's what I wanted to ask you. So you told me like a month ago when we were just talking off air, some funny story that like I just thought of, and it's a little thing, but I'm just gonna ask you.
Okay, you want to make sure what story it is.
No, you're good. When you raided a house, or your unit raided a house,
yep.
What was the last little kicker thing that you would always do just to?
Oh, I'd open the refrigerator and leave it open. So like, yeah, we'd raid the house. So we say raid, right? My job was to clear the house.
This was in where, Iraq?
Iraq, yeah.
Okay. And this is probably the last thing the person whose house it is worried about, but you would just do it.
I feel like a dick, you know, because they didn't have electricity all the time. And sometimes the people's house that we were hitting, probably 90% of the time, I felt like we had good intelligence and like they were up to some shit, so fuck them. But once in a while, probably some people got caught up in the mix that were like, fuck, dude, all our food's gone, you know? Like,
you just leave the fridge open.
Oh, leave it open.
The last thing.
That would be
was that the very last thing you did?
That would be the last thing I would do, yeah.
Is walk over to the fridge and open
Somebody
it.
would always look into it and like check it, make sure they don't have something in there, you know, right? And then they'd close it. And then we'd be like, all right, yeah, we're wrapping up. And I'd fucking walk over there, open it, and then leave. Yeah. That was like my calling card. Like, fuck you guys.
And they... It's like they knew who did it.
Yeah.
Like the Iraq community was like, damn, Mark Lemon was in here, left the door open.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That's funny.
Well, I mentioned to you already, I think we could do another podcast of like just military stories alone, because
there's tons of shit like that.
That fascinates me.
Mm-hmm. There's like that. So like, I know we've touched on like a lot of dark things and like that.
But that's good. Like we got to know you other than the military, because people know you as
honestly,
the military
the things
guy.
I've talked about here as openly, I don't think I've talked to like a lot of people that know me. They don't know that stuff. In that much detail. And there's even more to that, you know, like, but that being said, like some of the shit that you see and do over there is fucking hilarious. Like, I mean, just little things. Like I have a, quick story, like that kind of sums up like the funny shit that happens is when we were in Iraq, we took over a train repair station, right? So we took the admin building, and so you're living in this building and like the dust is everywhere and it's like caked onto you because you're sweating all the time. There's no AC. And it's just terrible. And you're always sick. Like you're inside, you're just shitting all the time. Like, and sometimes like you can't control it, you know? My buddy used to joke, like, you know how when you fart, you're like, oh, I just shit myself. Like Iraq's like one of the places you have to ask, well, did you actually shit yourself? Or so one night I'm sitting in the rack and like I'm asleep and everybody's asleep. And there's like, I want to say 12 dudes in the room. And like, we legit live there's a foot space in between your cots. And I'm like, oh no.
So
I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to make it down the hall to the bathroom, which by the way, is just a hole in the floor that you have to squat over.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I look at the end and like we had 2 rows of cots. And then at the end, there was this like big contractor trash bag. And I'm like, fuck it. I get up, run over there, pull down my shorts and squat over. And I'm shitting into a trash bag. And I'm laughing like a little kid, giggling because I'm like, all these guys are sleeping right now. If somebody wakes up, they're going to be like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm fucking shitting, you know? And none of them woke up. I was able to shit in the thing. I got my sneakers on, rolled it up, threw it over like I was Santa Claus, walked through. Now I'm walking through a building where there's like, stuff doesn't stop at night because everybody's sleeping. Like there's continuous operations. So there's people everywhere. And I'm walking out with a big trash bag full of shit. Just walking like, hey, I'm getting away with murder right now. Threw it away. Went back to sleep, woke up the next day. I'm just like, nobody knows.
Everybody's like, how do you sleep? Mom's like, good.
Yeah.
I slept great.
Slept great. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I guess like that side of like there's a funny side and then there's also the serious side.
Yeah. You gotta
I think you gotta kill time like
Oh,
that's what
big
Taylor was
time.
saying
Big
on
time.
the previous podcast was time killing is a big
so
thing.
I explain it's like I'm talking about all this stuff, right? And you have to understand I was there a year and a half, so like 90% of the time it's fucking boring. You know, it's like dreadfully boring. So that's where your boys come in. That's where they entertain you. Like I can remember sitting in convoys, like we'd go do an operation somewhere, you know, whether it's like a cordon search or, you know, like, hey, they've got weapons at this place, we're gonna kick the doors in and go. Like, and sometimes they'd, you know, it's a big, huge convoy, right? So they got to coordinate everything, and they're people, so they take forever. And you're just sitting there in a Humvee, like, what's going on? Like, what? It's hot. It's like 130 degrees. Like, dude, I'm sweating.
Yeah.
And that's where your boy in the back seat starts talking like a, you know, a British, you know, reporter, you know, whatever. Day 529 of, you know, this. I have a terrible, accent, but of cordon search, you know, on to the fob, you know, you're just dying laughing, you know, you're like, dude, shut up, but you're laughing, you know.
Just with the boys.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Boys are boys, man.
Well, I think we've been on here for close to an hour here, maybe a little over, but like we were saying off the air, I think we definitely have to come back in here. Part two. You and Taylor, both our military guys so far on the podcast.
That'd be fun.
You guys are going to have to do a part two for each of your stuff because there's a lot said. But I think, like you touched upon, the stuff that we talked about is often not talked about.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that needs to be talked about. And I think that's kind of what Alex and I are trying to get out of this podcast is, you know, people know you served, people knew your title, but they didn't know about after, or they didn't know everything about you, which I think in this case, if you're listening and you've listened to this whole podcast, now you have the full perspective of what it's like to be in your position, you know, and all the stuff that comes with it. So
that's very important to me. Like I don't talk about this stuff. I've told you guys, like I always feel like weird talking about it because I don't want to be like, oh, I'm bragging. I did all this cool stuff. It's like I'm at the point now where I want to talk about it so that like somebody who is in my position that maybe needs to hear like, hey, it is okay. This is how this guy got out. You know, hey, dude, I've been in the hole. I know the way out. You know, and let's go.
Yeah. You're the second guy in the hole that says I've been here before, like you said. And I think you're unique in a good way in the fact that you're very relatable. Every story that you've said is either, you know, something that everyone's thought, something that is like I said, relatable, something common. There's a sense of humor there. People like Alex and I feel comfortable to talk to you. So I think people listening to that will definitely relate to that and go from there. But all in all, I think this episode's good because it's a segue. Now people know who you are. So the next time that they see your name, we'll put it in the title there, Military Stories with Mark Lemon. And
I love it.
We'll dive, like I told Taylor and you before we got on here, like whatever you want to talk about, like it's all up to you. If you want to, don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. But I think it would be very entertaining for that episode to come out and sort of give like a, what do they call it at the end of like an episode? A cliffhanger. There'll be a little cliffhanger into the next episode. So you heard it here first. But thanks for coming on,
I appreciate
Mark.
it,
I don't like calling you Mark. I'm going to call you Lem. But Mark,
call you Lem too.
It's weird when people call me Mark, to be honest.
Well, we have Lemons, our good friend Josh and you.
Yeah.
I call him Lems. So,
Lems.
but you're Lem.
I'm Lem, yeah.
There's no S there.
No S.
But
One letter.
yeah. Thanks for coming on, bro.
No, I appreciate it, guys, really.
Yeah.
It was an
That
honor.
was awesome.
Looking forward to having this one out.
Yep.
And that's a wrap.